We're just 5 days out from Election Day now, and the candidates are out west, courting voters in the western battlegrounds. Vice President Harris and former President Trump are both in Nevada and Arizona. Trump's also rallying in New Mexico today, a typically reliably blue state. In Wisconsin last night, Trump got behind the wheel of a garbage truck, quote, in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. He seized on the president's remarks where he was alleged to have called Republican supporters of Trump garbage. But now Trump is facing criticism for comments of his own, this time about women.
I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
Listen, it actually is, I think, very offensive to women in terms of not understanding their agency, their authority, their right, and their ability to make decisions about their own lives.
Let's begin tonight with Lilia, Luciano, and Nikole Killion, both in Nevada, both with the candidates. Lilia is following the Harris campaign in Las Vegas, Nikole with the Trump campaign down the street in Henderson. Nikole, Trump has a long history of making allegedly disparaging remarks about women. Let's take a listen to some of them.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account.
Only Rosie O'Donnell. 7% for Bird Brain. You know Bird Brain? I will never run against him. He is a great president. I will never, ever run against him, said Bird Brain. No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. Everyone knows she is a very low IQ individual.
So, Nikole, how concerned is the Trump campaign about the fallout about his protector remark?
You know, I don't think they're very concerned at all. And I think, you know, the former president, in terms of talking to some of his supporters here in Nevada, really, at least those I talked to, didn't seem to take a lot of offense to the comments. But they did acknowledge that he could have said it in a better way, that, you know, maybe he was just trying to convey that he would look out for women in the sense of, quote unquote, protecting them. So they didn't see it as a slight. And in fact, several of them have already early voted. So at this point for them, it's kind of moot because their votes have already been cast. But I did talk to some other voters today who support the vice president, who did take offense to the comments, you know, kind of along the same lines of what we heard from the vice president, saying that, you know, ultimately it should be women who have the ultimate authority and agency over their own body. And so for that reason, they didn't take too kindly to the former president's remarks. Here's a sampling of some of the reaction we got from voters earlier today here in Henderson, Nevada.
I think his comment was because maybe people can't see that he's trying to protect them, and he'll do it regardless of what they think his ulterior motive is.
I just don't know how he could say that women should not have abortions, whether they were raped, whether they were young, whether a medical reason. I just firmly believe it's a woman's right.
So again, it kind of depends who you talk to in terms of how those comments played. But as we know, certainly the vice president is making a strong push for women, and for the former president's part as well. He's trying to make more inroads because we know that there is a gender gap, with the former president really leading among men, the vice president leading among women. But obviously comments like that could make it a little tougher for the former president to close the gap.
Okay, Lilia, let's shift over to you in Las Vegas. How is the vice president's campaign trying to capitalize on these remarks from former President Trump?
The campaign and the candidate, Vice President Harris, is absolutely trying to capitalize. As you heard in that sound that you played at the top, Scott, we heard her talking about how, you know, the importance of sending the message about women's agency over their own bodies. The way that the campaign is receiving this and talking about this, what Kamala Harris says is that everybody should be offended. And remember that a big part of her campaign is about freedom. I mean, starting from the music to the messaging for women's freedom to choose to have that agency over their bodies. And so part of what people are reacting to is this is precisely what a lot of women fear. The idea that decisions will be made where they don't have a say. A lot of what we're going to hear about today, we expect here in Las Vegas, is part of those closing arguments of the Harris campaign, where she's saying, you know, to Latinos, to the community here in Vegas and to women having J-Lo as a speaker precisely is that this is about them taking the power, the agency, the fate over their own bodies. And here in Nevada, that is there is a ballot measure that is precisely about abortion, about making it part of the state's constitution to allow abortions until fetal viability.
At the same time, as she makes this Western swing, Lilia, how's the vice president trying to reach out to Latino voters in these battleground states?
Well, in this battleground state in particular, Scott, this is the 9th time that Harris has visited the state throughout the campaign. And of course, she's had a far shorter campaign than former President Trump. She has activated, or at least, I mean, the Get Out the Vote organizing that has happened here within the Culinary Union, which is a force getting people galvanized to vote and which has endorsed her. What I'm hearing from them is that their plan is to knock on 900,000 doors to talk directly or have already spoken directly to 130,000 people across the state. As I mentioned, J-Lo is speaking tonight. Maná, which is the most famous, celebrated rock en español band of all time, I would say. And of course, I know that people will argue that it's Soda Stereo. We can have that conversation later. At least the band that is surviving is going to play here. So that is sure to bring a whole lot of people out here to this venue. It doesn't hold tens of thousands of people, but thousands are expected to show up. And she continues to send the message to Latinos that, especially after what happened last Sunday with that comment about Puerto Rico, that what her campaign represents is unity and not division and not rejecting of certain communities.
And Nikole, back in Henderson, union votes are always so pivotal in Nevada. What inroads is the former president making or trying to make with them?
We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will grow up the sick political class.
Sorry, Scott, we're having a little trouble hearing you because it's very loud here in the background, so I'm just going to ask you to repeat your question if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm competing with a Trump speech here, so let me speak up. What inroads is he making with the unions in Nevada?
Well, look, that is a key part of both campaign strategy. Time and again, we hear the former president talk about having support from Teamsters or from the UAW, even though we know the Teamsters didn't make a formal endorsement of the former president, and the UAW, for the most part, supports Vice President Kamala Harris. Obviously, the bigger union here in town is the Culinary Union. But look, I think the former president, for the most part, continues to try to make this appeal to working class individuals. We actually heard some of that argument earlier today when he was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, kind of taking a detour from the battleground states to go to New Mexico, which is not as competitive. But he did outline some new proposals that he said would bring prices down by cutting regulations. He said he would enact one of the largest reductions in regulations in history, again, to try to bring down cost for the average American. So that is just a sampling of the former president's argument as he tries to keep the economy in focus during this Western stint, as well as the border.
Nikole, Killion, Lilia, Luciano, thank you both.